Hello everyone, welcome back. So today I was going to do a lot of work outside. I cut the grass in the backyard and pulled a bunch of weeds and lost about 5 pounds of sweat, got dizzy, and I said I'm not working anymore in this heat. So I've come inside to do work inside. But I thought I'd show you a book haul. I did get one book from Amazon and some thrift store books, and then the rest are mostly Book Outlet. So the one book that I did purchase from Amazon, now I saw on Book Outlet, there's quite a few in this series, but Book Outlet didn't have the very first book in the series, and that is the first Sebastian St. Cyr mystery by C.S. Harris, and this is What Angels Fear. So this takes place in 1811, and a body of a beautiful young woman is found savagely murdered on the altar steps of an ancient church near Westminster Abbey, and all the evidence points to Sebastian St. Cyr, who is a brilliant young nobleman shattered by the experiences in the Napoleonic Wars. So now he's a fugitive running for his life, and he's trying to prove his innocence. So yes, I did get the first book off Amazon. And then I went to Attic Books, which is a bookstore here in downtown London, and it's haunted. Now I think I probably mentioned before on a previous book haul or whatever about this ghost who haunts this bookstore, and they call him Roland, and they actually did an investigation a few years ago, and yeah, they did it during the night, and books were flying off the shelves, there was cigar smoke coming up from the basement, and all this stuff. So I haven't run into Roland yet. It's a really great bookstore. It's in an old building, and it has 3 levels of used books, and it's just a great place to hang out. So I did buy a few books from there. Now this one I was going to purchase on Book Outlet, but then they sold out. But I did find it at the used bookstore for like $5, and it's Wild Beauty by Anna Marie Macklemore, and the cover is just beautiful. I just love these bright colors against the black background, and the flowers are embossed. And it's just, I won't go over everything in too much detail, but it's sort of like a magic realism type of story. For nearly a century, this certain clan of women have tended the gardens of this lush garden estate, and they carry this curse with them and all this stuff. But anyway, yeah, that cover's just beautiful. Now the other ones that I found is the Leviathan series by Scott Westerfeld, and I did find one in paperback, and then I found the 2 in hardcover, and they're selling these for like $5 or $7 each. These ones. So this takes place in the early 19th century, and it's like a steampunk kind of story. And they do have illustrations throughout. Oopsie, just dropped that book. And there's another illustration there. So they have, it's illustrated throughout. And then I got the 2nd and 3rd book, and the inside covers of these hardcovers are just absolutely beautiful. And again, this is, they have illustrations throughout this also. So yeah, it's kind of an alternate, I think it takes place in London too, I think. So an alternate London, yeah. So yeah, I'm really glad to find these books. They're really quite beautiful. Alrighty, I'm gonna put these on the floor before they knock over. So these are from Book Outlet, and I've seen those on BookTube, and I was going to order it off Amazon, but the price is still really up there. But I think Book Outlet has, right now they have a sale, buy 2 get 1 free. I think I purchased this for like $10, the hardcover, and it's the retelling of Medusa by Jessie Burton, and I have read her books before. She what was that first one? The Miniaturist, which I really enjoyed. I do have The Muse here also, and I did read one other book of hers, and I just hit a blank on what it was. But again, beautiful, beautiful covers. Yeah, so this is just a basic retelling of Medusa, and they have colored illustrations throughout the book. So yeah, I'm really glad I was able to get that for a decent price. And this is by Craig Russell, and it's called Hyde. I love the colors in that cover. So this is a retelling of Jekyll and Hyde. Now I haven't read the original Jekyll and Hyde. One of these days I really need to. But this one, it takes place in Edinburgh, Scotland during Victorian times, which is... Oh, we're hoping to go to Scotland in September, but our dog needs probably ligament surgery, so she'll be recovering. But that was our plan, but we might have to ditch it. But one of these times we're definitely going to Scotland. So yeah, Victorian Edinburgh, Scotland. So as soon as I saw that, I thought, I've got to get this. So Edward Hyde is actually a chief detective, and he wakes up and he wakes up and finds himself at the scene of a heinous murder by the riverbank, with no inkling of how he got there or the events leading up to it. And he does have a neurological condition. He's being followed by a doctor and that, but he's kind of wondering, you know, am I the murderer kind of thing. So yeah, he's actually a chief detective in that. So that one looked really, really good. Alrighty, so I do read nonfiction at times, especially medical nonfiction. I do have the one book, and it goes throughout the history of medicine and all the procedures. It's very fascinating. So this one's Blood, Bullets, and Bones, a story of forensic science from Sherlock Holmes to DNA. So yes, I guess Sherlock Holmes, the author, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, very intelligent man, and I guess he was right into trying to solve these crimes himself using you know, logic and science and all this stuff. So but yeah, this it's nonfiction, but what they do is they take certain cases and they describe how they were solved using science, even way back when. And they do have illustrations throughout. So yeah, it looked really quite fascinating. Just how they solved cases throughout history using science and that. So, alrighty, and then I did get a couple of sort of Irish books, and this is Life Sentences by Billy O'Callaghan. And it follows 3 generations. The first is Nancy, who is the only member of family to survive the Great Famine. And then it jumps to 1920, where her son has lived through battles of his own as a soldier in the Great War. And then in the early 80s, his youngest child is nearing the end of her life. So yeah, it's kind of follows 3 generations of this Irish family. And now this one's quite fascinating. I'm going to do some more research into this. And that is Testimony of an Irish Slave Girl by Katie McCafferty. Slavery's been around since the beginning of time. Every culture, every country did it at some point. And it's still going on today. Where did I see this now? So between the reign of Elizabeth I and the monarchy of Charles II in 1660, an estimated 50 to 80,000 Irish men, women, and children were shipped to Barbados as indentured servants while they were slaves. So they conscripted people, of course, of poor, lower class status, tinkers, jugglers, peddlers, wanderers, idle laborers, loiterers, beggars, anything like that. They just scooped them up without consent and sent them to any country where they needed some slave labor, basically. So this does follow this one particular girl who was kidnapped from Ireland as a young girl and shipped to Barbados, and she was forced to work the land alongside African slaves, and so it just sort of follows her life. So it sounded very interesting. And this is Orphan Train by Christina Baker Klein. So I just finished reading a book of hers, and I actually really did like it. So between 1854 and 1929, there was orphan trains that ran regularly from the cities of the East Coast to the farmlands of the Midwest, carrying thousands of abandoned children whose fate would be determined by chance and circumstance. So this particular story follows a young Irish immigrant, Vivian. She was once such child who was sent by rail from New York to an uncertain future, a world away. So yes, some of those stories worked out well, others did work out so well. And this is Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. And this takes place in 1973. It's a compassionate novel about a young black nurse's shocking discovery and burning quest for justice in post-segregation Alabama. So she's fresh out of nursing school. She wants to make a difference to the African American community. She works in a family planning clinic. And I think they go into how young black women and children were forcibly sterilized against their consent, and that I think some of that takes place in this. So I thought that was going to be a very good read. And this one is called Grace by Natasha Dion. And so this one actually is narrated by a ghost. So this 17-year-old slave, 15-year-old Naomi, escapes the brutal confines of life on an Alabama plantation and takes refuge in Georgia brothel run by a Jewish madame named Cynthia, and she has a love affair with a white gentleman, and she has a baby, and then I think she's murdered at some point. Anyway, supposedly this is narrated by the young girl who was murdered, and her child has been left behind. And then this is Everything I Thought I Knew. And I really love the cover on this one. So 17-year-old Chloe had big plans, but she collapses during a cross-country practice and told she needs a new heart. So 6 months after her transplant, everything is different. So she starts acting totally unlike herself. Her personality changes. She takes heedless risk. And she has recurring nightmares of dying and vivid memories that she doesn't recognize in that after her heart transplant. And then this is The Hawthorne School by Sylvie Perry. And what first drew my attention was this really spooky kind of Gothic type of cover. So Claudia is a single parent. Her 4-year-old is a handful. So she hears about a school that has an atypical learning style, the Hawthorne School, and it's supposed to help young children in that. So the head of the school is very expensive, so they let Claudia volunteer to cover the cost of the tuition. The school is good for Henry. His behavioral problems disappear and he comes home subdued. But there's something a bit off about the school. It's cold halls and its headmistress. So yeah, I don't think things turn out too well. But yeah, I thought that was just a really kind of spooky looking cover. This is The Painted Bridge by Wendy Wallace. And again, anything that takes place in like asylums or spooky schools or whatever in the 1800s, I just eat that stuff up. So behind us, a high stone wall on the outskirts of London lies Lake House, a private asylum for women of a delicate nature. In the winter of 1859, Anna Palmer becomes its newest patient tricked by her husband just weeks into her marriage. So she, back then, which is so sad, back then, if a husband didn't like how a woman was acting, like his wife was acting, he could make up some lame excuse and have her forced into an asylum, and there's nothing that woman could do. That happens so often. So she has to go through cruel treatments, and she struggles to prove her sanity. Ooh, yeah, that sounds good. And then did get the last house on Needless Street by Katrina Ward. So I've always been wanting to grab this one. So supposedly, I won't even go into synopsis once. I just want to go into this without really knowing too much about it. I know it's supposedly narrated by a cat. But yeah, it's just a boarded up house on a dead-end street. And there lives a family of 3. An unspeakable secret binds them together. But when a new neighbor moves in next door, what is buried among the birch trees come back to haunt them. So yeah, I'm just kind of going to go in blind with that one and see what happens. And this is We Are All the Same in the Dark. And the discovery of a girl abandoned by the side of a road threatens to unearth the long-buried secrets of a Texas town's legendary cold case. So yeah, I think they find a young girl, but she's alive. But there's some kind of connection between the 2 cases, the present case and the one in the past, or something like that. But alrighty, this is Gilded Years by Karen Tanabe. Now I believe this is based on a true story. Yeah, she was in 1897, Anita Hemmings was the first African American woman to attend Vassar, and no one knew. But I guess she was light-skinned enough where she could pass as white. But then I think she gets pulled into the elite world of her classmates and that, and I think she is found out at some point. But I'm pretty sure this is based on a true story. It's set against the vibrant background of the Gilded Age. An era when old money traditions collided with modern ideas. Yeah, inspired by a remarkable true story. It's a gripping account of how one woman dared to risk everything for a chance at a better life. And this is The Beekeeper's Apprentice by Laurie R. King, the first Mary Russell novel. So she's kind of taking the Sherlock stories and continuing them on. So I believe this one is when Sherlock has retired, and then in 1915 Sherlock Holmes is retired and quietly engaged in the study of honeybees in Sussex when a young woman literally stumbles into him on the Sussex Downs. So I guess they work together to solve some kind of case. And this is Diane Chamberlain, The Last House on the Street. So yeah, this is kind of a vague synopsis. It's a dual timeline anyhow. There's a young woman who's kind of a crusader for civil rights in 1965. And then a woman, Kayla is the woman who moves into the next door 45 years later, and the woods that connect them more than just their properties. So yeah, it's kind of a dual timeline anyhow. But I heard really, really good reviews about that one. Oh, my foot just fell asleep. I'm too old to sit like that. So I did see on BookTube The Last Magician, and it's kind of a kind of magic realism set in New York. I think it starts off in modern day New York, and then there's some kind of time travel back to 1902 during the Gilded Age, and there's all these magical artifacts and that. But I've heard it's quite good. I hate snakes, and all these have these snakes on the cover. But anyway, I noticed that they had the other 2 up for sale too, and they were just like $7 each for these big, huge hardcovers. So I thought, oh, what the heck, you know. So there's The Devil's Thief and The Serpent's Curse, I should say. I hate snakes, but those are very stunning covers anyhow. But look at the size of this third book. It's about 750 pages or so. It's a chunky one. You could actually probably kill someone with this thing quite easily. It's huge. But yeah, I've heard such good things about these, and they were for a good price, so I thought I might as well just snag all three of them. And a few months ago, I did purchase The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. I don't know how to pronounce that. So this takes place in Edinburgh, Scotland. Anything that takes place there. Ropa is a ghost talker, and she speaks to Edinburgh's dead, carrying a message to those left behind. So they did have the second one for sale, Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments. So yeah, I got those two. Alright, so that's another little bit of a book haul. Yeah, Frank just comes back here and just shakes his head, but anyway. Yeah, it could be worse. I could be addicted to a lot worse than books. Anyhow. So I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you read any of these books or which ones you're enjoying. And everyone take care. Stay cool. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.